What is PrEP and who is it aimed at?
So PrEP is a drug used by HIV negative people for them to take on a daily basis to prevent them getting HIV.
Okay. Why does the issue resonate with you?
Well, it resonates so strongly with me actually because there are more people today in this country living with HIV than there ever has been. What that equates to basically is 17 people a day in this country being diagnosed with HIV, which in turn equates to 6,000 people in total in the UK every year. And we've got a study which indicates that PrEP is 86% effective in all cases. So I see that as a pretty big healthcare innovation. So why wouldn't you make that available on the NHS when actually, if it was introduced, we are actually talking about seriously wiping out new diagnosis of HIV within a generation. So why wouldn't you fund it on the NHS?
Why have the National AIDS Trust taken it to judicial review, and why has this then gone to an appeal?
Well, despite the evidence, the clear-cut evidence that we have on PrEP's effectiveness, it was removed from the NHS's commissioning processes earlier this year. Now, I sort of find that quite baffling, but then the government went on to say after that decision that we'll undertake some evidence reviews and some pilots. Well, we already have the evidence, so why do we need to do the evidence reviews and the pilots? It's just delaying it, and it's actually having more of an impact on those people who are contracting HIV within that time period. And so basically the reason why NHS appealing is they're appealing against that original decision on the judicial review, which basically said that they could lawfully provide PrEP on the NHS.
Right. So why do you think it's so important for the NHS to provide PrEP and not local authorities?
Well, if you look at it, let's be honest, in the last 6 years, local authority budgets, public health budgets, have absolutely been smashed to pieces. You know, we're looking in Bradford by 2020, our budget being cut in half, you know, in 10 years. But back to it, the reason why we need to provide it from a national point of view is if you have a national framework, it means people will get the drug based on their needs. So I need this, I'm somebody who's more at risk, so I'm going to get the drug. Whereas if it's done on a local basis, it's not only more expensive to buy locally, it also means that somebody in Bradford might be getting it when somebody in Manchester might not, because the local authorities don't have the budgets to make that decision.
Okay, why would it be more expensive to buy it locally than it would nationally?
Well, basically, it's like with anything, if you buy anything in bulk, it's a lot cheaper. Whereas if you're buying it in a lot smaller amounts, it's going to be more expensive. So actually, buy it nationally, it's cheaper overall. Mm-hmm. You're more likely to tackle a massive wide-scale health problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So why should other treatments on the NHS be removed or reduced to pay for preventative treatment for a problem that's already got a preventative solution?
Well, if you look at it, this has always been about options. It's never actually been about removing or reducing. And actually, in the aftermath of the judicial review decision, I found it quite offensive, actually. Some of the statements what were being put out by setting people who were suffering with HIV against people suffering with the harsh realities of cystic fibrosis. Found it quite crass and distasteful, actually. And the key point to mention here is about PrEP is that if we look at the amount of money we spend in this country on HIV treatment and care, that amount, the 2% of that amount we spend on prevention. So if there was ever an argument for actually investing in PrEP, I think it is there, right there, with that statistic.
Mm-hmm. So people are saying that this treatment, when given to people, will incite them into taking additional risks. Can you respond to that?
It's almost laughable, that statement, actually. I've heard it quite a lot in some right-wing media and in some other places. But it's actually quite the opposite, because actually, by somebody taking a decision to say, well, I am going to take PrEP, that's them saying, I am taking control of my sexual health. So PrEP almost becomes a part of their toolbox of being sexually healthy. So it's about making responsible choices. So like I say, it's quite the opposite of some of those accusations people have made.
Okay. Another common thing that comes out is the comparison to the pill. Like, many women fall pregnant while prescribed the pill, sometimes due to genuinely missing a dosage or not realising they've missed something. Now, with the potential result here of contracting HIV, which is incredibly serious, is it wise to allow someone to go out feeling that they're safe when in fact they might not be?
Again, we need to clarify on that sort of question. PrEP will never be a replacement or an alternative to condoms.
Right.
It complements it. It's part of an armoury of protection. It's part of that toolbox, as I referred to earlier. And it's actually used alongside condoms. It's used alongside testing. It's used alongside treatment. So that's what it's really about.
Okay. So, can you tell me what the next steps are? If the court rules to uphold the decision, where do we go from there?
Well, basically, the first step will be there are a series of meetings, which basically means the decision or not whether to include PrEP on the NHS would automatically be fed in back into the commission and decision-making processes and meetings. But the key meeting really will happen at the end of October when the NHS committee actually meets to decide whether or not to make PrEP available on the NHS, like most people who know about PrEP and who know that it is effective and who knows it could cure new diagnosis of HIV within a generation would know it's the right thing to do. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Richard Dunbar.
Thank you.